Hello, XCon participants. I'm so excited to be a part of the fifth year of XCon. It's been a great 3 days. I hope you all have gotten a lot out of the presentations. I know I have. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever in the world you're coming to us from. My name is Patrick Sturdivant. I'm a principal strategy consultant with Deque. I am also blind and I am a Braille reader. So yes, I am looking at notes in Braille. So just for those of you out there who may also be Braille readers. Today I'm coming to you from the Texas Hill Country, just outside of San Antonio. I am a middle-aged male with dark brown hair, and I'm wearing proudly a wonderful purple accessibility. I love accessibility T-shirt provided by Deque, and I'm so excited to add it to my collection. Today, I have the great honor to introduce to you a legend when it comes to disability rights. But before I do that, I'd like to take a moment to watch a trailer of a documentary called Crip Camp that's available on Netflix and YouTube. So let's roll that video real quick.
What, you want me to tell them what happened? Well, two people got cramps and they're spreading. We were all very hyper about it. And I have to go shower some people.
Executive producers President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama.
I wanted to be part of the world, but I didn't see anyone like me in it. I hear about a summer camp for the handicapped run by hippies. Somebody said you probably will smoke dope with the counselors, and I'm like, sign me up.
Disabled campers play guitar and sing.
Come to Camp Jeanette and find yourself.
There I was in Woodstock.
Campers dance and play baseball.
You wouldn't be picked to be on the team back home, but at Jeanette, you had to go up to bat.
Even when we were that young, we helped empower each other. It was allowing us to recognize that the status quo is not what it needed to be.
Sundance Film Fest winner.
The world always wants us dead. We live with that reality.
At the time, so many kids just like me were being sent to institutions. It was just a continual struggle.
Most disabled people, like myself, are unable to use public transportation.
We needed a civil rights law of our own.
A Netflix original documentary.
A rehabilitation program has been vetoed by the president because it was cost prohibitive.
We decided we were going to have a demonstration.
You get the call to action, to the barricade.
Disabled
A
protesters.
small army of the handicapped have occupied this building for the past 11 days.
So many people from Camp Jeanette found their way into the building.
The deaf use sign language.
The FBI cut off the phones. The deaf people went, we know what to do. That's how we communicated to the people outside the building. The Black Panther Party would bring a hot meal. We were like this.
We are the strongest political force in this country.
Addressing congressmen.
We will no longer allow the government to oppress disabled individuals. And I would appreciate it if you would stop shaking your head in agreement when I don't think you understand what we are talking about.
Sit-in participants parade triumphantly.
What we saw at that camp was that our lives could be better.
A child rides his father's wheelchair. Protesters crawl up Capitol steps.
If you don't demand what you believe in for yourself, you're not going to get it.
Crip Camp, a disability revolution.
Would you like to see the handicapped people depicted as people? Excuse me?
In select theaters and on Netflix March 25th. Rated R.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. That sets the stage for what we're going to be talking about today. Jim is a notable filmmaker, producer, director, podcaster, sound designer, and disability rights advocate. He co-directed the documentary Crip Camp, which I encourage you all to watch if you get a chance. It's well worth the time. With over 40 years experience in the entertainment and disability rights space, I have the great pleasure to introduce to you Jim Lebrecht. Jim.
Patrick.
Good day.
Hi. I'm really so happy to be here. I am a older white man with glasses and a pinkish shirt on. I've got a goatee and my curly hair is still looking like I'm fresh out of the shower. Uh, and behind me is a red wall with some posters. And I am talking to you from Oakland, California, the unceded land of the Ohlone people.
So
Patrick, let me just say I'm
yes,
so happy to be here with you all, and I'm honored to be saving the best for last, maybe.
yes, we are the best for last. So Jim, I'm going to tell you something that I haven't admitted yet. So Crip Camp came out 5 years ago, right?
Yes.
And I've heard about it, but until I got invited to work on this project, I've never watched it because I always thought, I don't need to watch that. I'm disabled. I know all about disability. I know all about the struggle. I don't need to watch that video. Oh my God. After watching it 2 or 3 times, I was so wrong. I am so lucky I got to meet you, work on this project, and get to watch it several times because I learned so much. So all I can say is if you're disabled or not, if you're here today listening to this and you haven't watched the documentary, please find some time.
Well, thank you. It's kind of funny. Sometimes we think that, you can't tell a book by its cover, really. And so I'm glad you finally got a chance to, watch the film. And I just have to say that being here, first off, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the co-director, Nicole Noonan, who she and I have known each other professionally for many, many years, and that we were able to craft this incredible collaboration. So, and this film has been seen all over the world. It has created change in many, many places, really started conversations, which is what Nicole and I really wanted. We wanted to reframe disability for those with and without disabilities, but we also wanted to start conversations. And I know that we have thousands and thousands of conversations, if not millions.
So Jim, before we dive in deeper, I know a lot of people are asking this question, and we should just get this topic out on the floor. I think Crip Camp, the title. Some people are a little bit nervous to say that because it may offend someone. What are your thoughts on the name, and should people be worried about using the word Crip?
Well, we had a very interesting conversation with Netflix when when we were, finalizing the title. But there's a few reasons to use it. One of them is that, uh, I mean, for me, it's been kind of part of vernacular that says a few different things. Using it kind of says that I'm kind of identifying culturally with my disability, perhaps in a way that is a little bit more radical or a little bit more intent on really being strong about one's identity. Also, Corbett O'Toole, who's in the film, I remember years ago, we're old friends, and she said, "Hey, did you go to Crip Camp?" And for a moment, what do you? And then I realized it was shorthand for going to a summer camp for people with disabilities. And lastly, I think that the radical, if one can call it that, nature of using that word is an attempt to reclaim the word cripple and uh, and I think that that was one of the reasons that we really wanted to stick with this, was that it was a very kind of strong and at times for some people very startling title, but that it really kind of said what we needed to say. I will say that there's a website for the film, and within that website, Alice Wong, who I know is one of your speakers earlier on, we linked to an article where she talks about the use of that word.
So, Jim, can you kind of take us back in time a little bit and just briefly give us kind of like the story of how this wonderful idea to make this documentary started, who kind of was involved, and who were some of the key people that made it all happen?
Be happy to. Well, I've been a mixer. I've done a few different things in my life, but majority of it was running a sound audio post production house in Berkeley, California, and I really did serve the documentary community almost exclusively. And one of my first clients was Nicole, who I just mentioned, and Nicole is a fabulous filmmaker. And as she was wrapping up her previous film to Crip Camp, I took her out to lunch. And because I knew, as someone who had seen so many documentaries, that the stories that I knew weren't being told. I mean, I knew there were stories that weren't being told. And I wanted to pitch her some ideas because I thought so highly of her as a filmmaker. And but literally, kind of at the end of all of this conversation over lunch, I said, there's a story about my summer camp that I think is really worth telling. And initially, I talked about that there was this exodus of people from New York out to Berkeley. Like, why did that happen? Why did people take that risk? And I said, I believe there's a connection to the disability rights movement. And we started talking a little bit, and I said, Nicole, I'm going to send you to a Facebook page that has a whole bunch of black and white photographs from back in the day when I was at the camp, and which I did. And as she tells it, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. And she was seeing all these incredible photographs, people having fun, doing all sorts of different things. And that it was kind of blowing her mind because, what we typically, I think that people that aren't really part of our community assume is that, gee, disability, it's things that are really sad or we're in pain all the time, which some of us are. But the point being that it wasn't such a jubilant and happy experience. And that's what she was seeing. She contacted me and said, Jim, I'm kind of sold, but we should make this film together. And so we wound up crafting this amazing um, collaboration where I really understood the world of Camp Jened. I was there. I understood the world of disability, and but complementing that was her real deftness at being a documentary filmmaker. Um, so that was how things initially started, but really the credit here goes to a number of different people. We had an executive producer that was trying to find a home for us, Howard Gertler, and then our sales agent that we got contacted somebody at the Obama's production company, Higher Ground, and said to Priya Swaminathan, you got to see this trailer for this film. And she had been bugged about it from Howard, and she said, okay, okay. And she called Nicole and I in her editing room and said, I don't know what you folks have done. I can't stop watching this trailer. And it wasn't the trailer that we just experienced. It was kind of our sizzle reel, like this is what the film could be. And she came up to Berkeley from Los Angeles, and the president, Mrs. Obama, and Higher Ground said, we really want to roll up our sleeves and work with you. So that, along with some fantastic editors, amazing creatives for everything from music to graphics, really made the film what it is today.
Jim, you guys got really lucky, I think, in the fact that you had so much archival photographs and video somehow miraculously saved. Was that a big blessing to you guys to have that to work from?
Oh my gosh, it's really it would have been a very, very different film if it wasn't for the fact that we were able to locate this black and white footage. And so back in 1971, this group of videographers called the People's Video Theater happened to stop at a gas station not too far from Camp Jened, which was up in the Catskill Mountains. And we kind of, they had their van doors open, they had equipment in there. And somebody with our group said, hey, who are you folks? What's the story with this equipment? And they explained that they're taking this new portable technology and just documenting things and trying to use it as a tool for helping communities. And we invited them over to Camp Jened to film our uh, our Olympics. And so, I mean, and when they showed up, they couldn't get it in at first. And then when they did, two counselors had gotten the crabs, and the whole camp was kind of like quarantined, and people were shampooing with Quell, and laundry was being done. Sheets were in the swimming pool, and they just started rolling their video cameras. Now, I had remembered these people coming to the camp. I remembered that their name, people was in the word people was in their name. And Nicole set about trying to figure out who this was. And she eventually, after about 3 months of sleuthing every night on the internet, came across a recently digitized video magazine from back in the day for these videographers, which was a new term at the time. And in the back was an ad that said, crab epidemic at Camp Jened for the handicap, $6.95, People's Video Theater. So eventually, so that gave her the lead. We found Howard Gutstadt, who's one of the people from the People's Video Theater, and found out that he was the board president of an anarchist bookstore in San Francisco, which somehow really just kind of fit beautifully. Long story short, Howard got a hold of us. We met over lunch and had a really kind of wonderful experience where he remembered handing me the camera one day and just remembered his experience at Camp Jened. And what they had still was 11 half-hour reels of videotape that had been moved literally 17 times over the course of 45 years, all different people's basements. And it was being digitized at that time. And we wound up licensing the footage. It would have been a different film. Nicole and I were talking about trying to find a summer camp that we could film recreations of stories from people from the camp using disabled actors. And we didn't have to go down that road, did we?
That's great. So, Jim, you're working on another project, I understand, that's going to be coming out really soon that, again, people need to be excited about. Can you share a little bit about this other documentary?
Oh, thank you, Patrick. You should become my manager. So I've been working for, gosh, about a year, co-directing a documentary about the Americans with Disabilities Act. And that's going to be premiering on PBS on American Experience on March 25th. Check your local listings for times, but it's called Change Not Charity, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And we were really fortunate to have, first off, a great team of people working on it. Shauna Gatson is the co-director with me, who's a producer also. But we were able to interview three, among many others, three women that worked at DREDF, Disability Rights Education Defense Fund, who were really, very much pivotal for the legal aspects of the act, plus really working on the strategy with many other people. But we have interviews from them, Steny Hoyer, Senator Harkin, Ralph Nees, John Woodhatch, just all of these people who were there in the room, and some of which have never done an interview, like Pat Wright. So I really encourage people to see the film. It seems more timely than ever, that we really show people what the struggle was just to get it made, but more importantly, really what the intention was and is of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I will say that what is most stunning is that this was a bipartisan effort. And really, Democrats and Republicans came together. And when it comes down to it, disability is not, I mean, disability is the beautiful thing about disability, right? Is it cuts across all strata of society. And so, if you didn't have a disability yourself, you knew somebody that did. You understood that the discrimination that was going on against our people who are deaf, neurodiverse, or disabled was real and was uncalled for, and really, um, how do I say this? It was holding people back from lives, that their own chosen lives. And it isn't just about charity for us. It was about helping us enter the workforce. It was about people having access to us, as well as us having access to the rest of the world.
So I'm not going to try to give away the entire documentary, because you just really need to experience it. But I can tell you the documentary, to me, Jim, you can correct me, is kind of like three areas that it focuses on, which is Camp Jeanette, really the struggles to bring Section 504 into reality, and then the ADA. That really spans a time of, the 1970s and 1980s until we got ADA in 1990. So I want to pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about who I am, some of my observations and things that I've gone through, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, Jim, in just a minute. We're going to do the kind of the same thing so people can better understand more about Jim, besides being a great producer, director, filmmaker, and as you know, all the one sound designer, the things that Jim does. So I kind of grew up in that same time. I'm about 10 years younger than Jim. I was born with glaucoma. I did have some vision, but it was quite apparent from the very beginning that I would lose my sight. So when I was in the first grade, I was sent to a school for the blind. I was very fortunate that while my school district did not have any services at that time, because this is before Section 504, that there was a school in my city in San Antonio that did offer training for people who are blind. So I learned Braille and all that great stuff, and had special teachers for the blind. And that went very well. And then kind of a pivotal moment happened around 1978, which really was about the time Section 504 kicked in. Instead of going to this special school in my city that was not in my school district, which meant I didn't go to school with kids in my neighborhood, in 1978, all of a sudden I was told, you're going back to your school in your neighborhood. And that was because of Section 504. So that was a major change, because the first 6 years I was in a special school, had a great time there. I value that time a lot. That's where I learned Braille and all those good skills. The last 6 years, I was in my neighborhood, in my local school. So that was a great experience too. Fast forward, I graduated, went to university here in San Antonio, This is before ADA. Patrick decided he wanted to go to a private school. And guess what? There was no requirements for them to do anything for me. There was no disabled student services or anything. But there was one really important thing. They cared enough to want me there, and they did everything they could to make me included and solve all my problems. So they had never had a blind student before. They got me talking computers. The professors were all about inclusion and doing things differently. So I had a great experience there. Remember, this is still all before 1990, before ADA, and it was time to find a job. No ADA, but I applied for a job. Well, actually, I applied for an internship. I wanted to intern and get my master's degree, and I was told we can't offer you an internship, but we can offer you a job. So I was offered a job at a large financial services company, and I was there for 34 years. And again, there was no law making them do anything for me, but they cared and they wanted to make sure I had everything I needed. I guess the next pivotal point was, everything was rolling kind of good. I was working, being productive as a IT person, writing code. I was what we called back then a computer programmer, and I wrote code, tested code, and worked with customers. And then 1995 came, and Windows was starting to be adopted. And that transition to a GUI interface was a rough one. Pretty much it was a rough one for about 10 or 15 years because we really didn't get on board with accessibility formally until the Target lawsuit of 2007. That's when things started to really change. I would say things, I would, talk about accessibility, and most people didn't even know what I was talking about. But when the Target lawsuit came out, leadership woke up. They knew this was considered a reputational risk, and they wanted to do something, and they started the work. And that's when it started. I got involved about 4 or 5 years later, and I've spent now 12 years dedicated to digital accessibility, and I'm very pleased with the progress we're making. We still have a lot of work to do, but it keeps me engaged, motivated, and excited to see the change. So, Jim, tell us a little bit about Jim.
Well, Patrick, I love your story here, and it brings up something that reflects my journey, and I think is a good example for other people. And that is that you talk about, gee, there's something here that's not working, that's not accessible, and you want to speak up about it. You want to let people know that there's something that could be better that isn't at the moment. They didn't fire you for speaking up. And
they probably wanted to.
Probably. But along my journey in film, I was the first, I didn't know anybody else that, used a wheelchair that was involved with the editing and creation of film. And so when I came across certain accessibility, I would say something. And Nicole says that, when she first started working with me, she might come into our, the mix stage, and I'd be on the phone somewhere trying to convince film festival, that they needed to fix the inaccessibility of their film festival years, in the, 15 years ago, let's say. So I've always wanted to make it easier for the next person that came along. And what I want to try to say is that if you feel comfortable doing it in your own lives, I don't think there's anything wrong in pointing out what people may not see, even if you think it's something that they don't want to fix. I think that the act of simply telling people that, in our break room, this is not accessible to me, and I always have to ask for help. Could the microwave be moved? down to many, many other things I could, I could come up with so many different examples. But I think that if we look at especially our political movement, that is, starts with one person talking to another person who talks to another person. And these are the way movements really, really started. Um, Specifically around me, I went to special school for kindergarten. Excuse me, kindergarten, part of first grade. But my special ed teacher said to my parents that, little Jimmy here was completing, things very, very quickly, that I was very smart, and that they had to do everything they could to get me into public school. And my parents did approach the school district, and I am grateful that I was an experiment in the early 60s at the Greenberg Public School District. And um, that saved my life, I think. I think that the ability to go to public school, which at times wasn't accessible, where I was crawling up and down stairs to, get to the library. I mean, I did that, yeah, but my classmates carried my chair for me, and I physically had the ability to do things like this. But that, I mean, as you were talking about your experience, Patrick, with school, I was thinking about, Mrs. Mason, my teacher in special ed, back in, gosh, when would that have been? 1961. And a tear came to my eye. And I think that, I don't know about yourself, but I've had many people who've seen great value in not, something about me that they really wanted to support. And I'm just really, I've certainly been very motivated, and I have a fear of missing out, so I don't want to miss any party or anything that's going on. But I'm really grateful to the people that put in a good word for me or took a chance on giving me my first job in theater or my first job in film. And because of that and my tenacity, and fortunately, I had some artistic abilities. I'm here talking to you all today. And I will say that one of the aspects of this is I was able to help found two nonprofit organizations that support people with disabilities in the entertainment business. And one of them is known as Forward Doc, fwd-doc.org. And we are a group of documentary filmmakers with disabilities and our allies. And we started about 4 or 5 years ago. And we have 1,200 members or more in 37 countries. And we've made real impact in making things like film festivals much more accessible. But really the most important thing is creating community. And I know that when we started out, and we still hear this to this day, that there are people with disabilities who had never met anybody else um, making film that also had a disability. And so I'm really, really so happy that we've started this organization. The other one, the One in Four Coalition, works with on the narrative side of film with studios and with screenwriting and such, and they've had a really good impact. Um, so I will say that we heard about a Crip Camp effect in Hollywood, where our film was so well received. We were Oscar nominated and didn't wind up getting the Oscar that year. But um, everybody noticed this film. And what they noticed was there was an audience for authentic storytelling. And really, when you're looking at disability, um, you want to, it's like any other community, you want to have people who have the lived experience as part of what you are doing. And so I just came from the Slam Dance Film Festival in Los Angeles. Slam Dance started as kind of an alternative film festival to Sundance, and it was based in Park City, Utah, at the same time as Sundance every January. They moved this year to Los Angeles, and I was down there moderating a panel. But this is a film festival that has had a series called Unstoppable, and it's been one of the ways that people have learned to make had their films that they've worked on actually seen by people. And there's many other organizations I could go into, but what I'm saying is that I have seen over the last 5 years or so this growth of people making films. Storytelling is essential, and it is an incredible way to really dissipate the fear of the unknown, which I think a lot of us experience people having with us if we have disabilities, especially when it is an apparent disability. So my life is all about make.
Well, that's great, Jim. On the little bit of time we have left, can you tell me how ADA has changed your life?
Well, 504 kind of being the precursor for any
Yeah.
organization that received money from the federal government. I immediately saw it at UC San Diego, where I was going to school, and where all of a sudden, we started getting ramps and the bathrooms were being modified. But in my life, it is first off knowing that there were protections, job, just anti-discrimination measures in there. But yeah, going out to curb cuts and going to businesses and things are accessible. And especially, I grew up, you always had to call and find out whether I could get my wheelchair in the door. I mean, if I said, is your place wheelchair accessible? They wouldn't even know what I was talking about. But are you on the ground floor? And I use a wheelchair to get around. Will I be able to get into your restaurant? And do you have a bathroom on the same floor? Here we are today. You do a Google search, and on a restaurant, it's going to have, if it's accessible, it's going to have a little icon that has wheelchair access on it. There's incredible information. And even with Google, when you use Google Maps and you say, I want to go from point A to point B, I can look at what path has the least steep way of going in my wheelchair. So, I mean, the examples are all over the place. And living in the Bay Area, the home of the modern disability rights movement, I really don't have to really think about accessibility too much, not as much as I did growing up in New York and or in other parts of the country where I think there hasn't been as much of a intention to really modifying buildings and getting things more accessible.
Well, Jim, the time just has flown by. I think we're ready for Ryan to hop back in and see what we've got for Q&A. Ryan, are you there?
I am. Thanks so much, Patrick. Jim, really appreciate the personal storytelling and the way you've invited us into your experiences. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And so does the chat, and some great questions coming through. Just a reminder for all of you watching, please put those questions in the Q&A section. Upvote your favorites that we need to get in front of Patrick and Jim here. To start things off, let me find one of the most popular questions. And I think this is really directed at both of you. What would you advise younger people who want to stand up for rights in this current moment, considering all of the things going on?
You want to start, Jim?
Sure, Patrick. I think that when I'm so sorry. I think we have to organize. Organizing doesn't an organization somewhere. What it means is that two, like I talked about, two people come, the threats to 504, 17 attorney generals, and I believe the attorney generals, and I believe the administration in Washington to declare the 504 regulations unconstitutional. And despite what they may be saying about, oh, certain states are not staying with the lawsuit, the word I'm hearing is yes, they are. And so I encourage people to go there and kind of learn about the talking points, learn about what you can do, make phone calls to people. Pressure is very, very important. And I believe that we can put enough pressure on the forces that would like to take away our rights. These are people who don't care if we wind up on the streets or or dead. And I know that sounds like, what do you mean nobody would want? What I'm saying to you is there are many people that just simply don't care about anything but themselves. And so it's time that we really re-energize, put the human face back on what this is all about. And I got to say, this really truly is a life and death struggle.
I would add to that the good news is we have been out there working at this for years. The disabled community as a whole is no longer shut in and away like it was 50, 60 years ago. Uh, we need to get out and just interact with people, inform people, let people know what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we matter, and make people understand we're no different than you are. We just sometimes do things differently. And is this how you would like to be treated? Because someday you may have a disability. So is this what you want for yourself? And I
If we
think
look
if
at
we
the
just,
history, I'm sorry, go ahead,
no,
Patrick.
go ahead, go ahead.
Let's say if we look at the history of the fight for the 504, for the fight for the ADA, the fight to keep the Affordable Care Act intact, where people stage die-ins in Capitol offices, we have the ability to make change or keep what we have. But I do have to say, in this day and age, that we have to go and prove that we matter is it's a shame, and it is why I believe in storytelling. But I have to tell you that the fact that we have to do this in this day and age, just saying it horrifies me.
Yep.
Ryan, you got another question?
I do. This next question states, I'm sure you've come across a lot of people, both professionally and personally, who try to be good allies, but go about it the wrong way. Do you have any advice for accessibility champions who struggle with these boundaries?
Patrick, you start.
Well, I would first say if you want to be an ally and you're not sure what to do, ask someone with a disability how they can help. Seek guidance, understand. Don't run out and start trying to help because you first got to get a little educated. It would be great if you could have a small circle of people that have disabilities to learn from and then seek their advice. Get on social media, start joining up groups, start learning. And once you feel like you're a part of the community, then you can really start to help because you'll understand what the problems are and what your contributions can be because everyone brings something different to the table.
I really believe in educating yourself. Assumptions are often not quite the right way. What can I do to help, or what are the solutions? really, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's plenty of information out there, but ask the questions. Gee, I want to make sure that the PDFs that I am making are accessible. I never knew that PDFs weren't accessible to screen readers, but I just found this out. How do I do that? And you might ask someone who uses a screen reader, and they may or may not know how actually it's done. Chances are they probably do, but the information is out there, and that's just one example.
Thank you so much. I think we've got time for a short final question. And I think it's thematic with what you're just talking about, Jim, as far as folks educating themselves. In addition to Crip Camp, are there some other documentaries that you know of that you might recommend to this audience?
Great question. I think back on Jen Brea's film Unrest, which really dealt with her coming to terms with having ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome. There's so many, and really that kind of relates to so many other hidden disabilities or chronic disabilities. There's a great film called The Tuba Thieves, which really is an incredible look at deafness that I really appreciate. And boy, you would think that I could rattle these things.
I put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Off, and I'm gonna like be hitting my forehead after we're off. But there are filmmakers like Reed Davenport who I really love, and he had a documentary for which he got the directing award at Sundance called "I Didn't See You There." I anyway, one more. Patrice.
Yeah,
Patrice, which is on Hulu and Disney, is about the marriage penalty that exists for people who are on SSI. It's a fantastic film, and I really you want it. So it's tomorrow night. You got Friday night movie night, Saturday night. You get some popcorn. Watch the documentary Patrice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll have a really great time. And if I'm, as my East Coast friend said, if I'm laying, I'm dying.
All right, Jim, Patrick, thank you so much. Really appreciate your fantastic session here, helping close out AxCon 2025. Everyone that's watching, thank you so much for being a part of this community and helping build this up. You're a really important part of what we're all trying to do here together. So thank you.